Liberty in our lifetimes in a free state of our own. That's the vision. That's the dream. We are building it in New Hampshire. I'm Eric Brakey, your host and renegade statesman for the Porcupine Report. Welcome to your source for porcupine news and free-range conversation on matters of liberty. All right, let's hop into the show. Hey there, all you porcupines, you. This is your host, your renegade statesman, your executive director of the New Hampshire Free State Project, Eric Brakey, coming to you for, what episode is it? Episode 100. Every single week, for the most part, missing a few things here or there, but always, anyway, every single week for 100 weeks now, we've been bringing you a brand new episode every Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m. Really, since I started this role as executive director through to today, it's kind of hard to believe. For those of you who've been on this journey with me since the very beginning, sorry about that ping. For those of you who've been on this journey with us since the very beginning, thank you for being here. For those who have joined us more recently, glad to have you in our audience. Go ahead and do me a favor, share the show, leave good comments, whatever platform you're on. We of course broadcast this every Wednesday at 7 on Facebook, X, Spotify, YouTube, and so many of your favorite podcasting platforms. So thank you so much for that. And of course, a quick word about our sponsors. I am a big fan of coffee, and I don't know if you saw some of the dust up happening in New Hampshire. There's apparently a coffee shop or a coffee roasting company up in Wolfboro, New Hampshire. Apparently it's like owned and operated by some like socialist Bernie Sanders supporters, and they were putting up some very public posts saying how much they hate free staters, and we're like a blight on the state. Never mind, these folks like moved here from Virginia, bringing their socialism from like basically, the Beltway up to New Hampshire. They don't like the live free or die spirit. They could have stayed down there or go to Massachusetts or something. But anyway, the great news is you don't have to drink their socialist, statist swill coffee, because right here in the Free State, we have Porcupine Coffee Roasting, one of our sponsors for the program. You can get specialty grade beans they import from all over the world. They roast them right here in New Hampshire with the Free State spirit and ship them out to you. And if you go to porcupinecoffeeroasting.com and use our discount code PORKREPORT, you can save 15% off of individual orders. So don't drink the socialist status swill. Drink the coffee that gives you some of that Free State spirit in your step. Whether you are fortunate enough to live here in New Hampshire, or if you're in one of those godforsaken states like Florida, which are really, designed for alligators, not for humans. This is the place to be. All right. So thank you to Porcupine Coffee Roasting. And our other sponsor I want to recognize is the Independence Inn. If you're planning a visit to New Hampshire, which you should be, plan a porcupine vacation. Come up for a week. Stay at the Independence Inn, owned and operated by Free Staters for those who want to explore the Free State and the communities that we have here. At nhindependenceinn.com, you can register, plan a stay, and tell them the Free State Project sent you, and they'll give you up to 50% off your stay. They're probably losing money on this, but their mission is to get more people who love liberty to come up and visit and explore the Free State. And they would be happy to help you plan your whole porcupine vacation. So check them out, the Independence Inn. I want to, of course, we're getting so close now, and I really am hoping you're going to be there with us. March 5th through the 8th, the 2026 New Hampshire Liberty Forum. Tons of great speakers coming in, from one of our keynotes, Scott Horton, to Matt Kibbe, to so many more. And you can see them all at the website, nhlibertyforum.com. Our theme this year is Build Freedom, and we're going to be talking about how we build freedom in the here and now, put liberty into practice, not just in theory, in practice, in the real world, in the here and now, or in a realistic near future. So use our discount code PORKREPORT. You'll save 5% on your New Hampshire Liberty Forum tickets right in Concord, New Hampshire. We hope to see you there. If you haven't got your tickets yet, be sure to act quickly. That'll be coming up before you know it. And I also want to thank our Porcupine patrons. We have close to 300 Porcupine patrons. Actually, last I counted, it was 291 Porcupine patrons. I'd like to get to 300. These are folks who support the year-round mission of the Free State Project with a contribution. Could be as little as $100 a year. Some people do a lot more. It's totally tax deductible. And you are supporting our efforts to outreach to liberty lovers outside New Hampshire, invite them to come and visit, build Free State community. And when you donate to the Free State Project, not only do you get all kinds of benefits, including a Porcupine patron lapel pin that shows you put your money where your mouth is, and gives you benefits at Free State Project events, but also it's tax deductible. So you're literally taking money away from Washington, D.C. that you could be sending to them otherwise so they could like blow people up in foreign countries. Instead, you can help us build the libertarian homeland. That's like, it's such an improvement for how your dollars could be used. So become a patron, fsp.org. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for our weekly Free State Project newsletter. And now, two pieces of news. I was just at the New Hampshire State House yesterday for the Senate hearing on Defend the Guard. If you've been watching, you know that Defend the Guard has passed the New Hampshire House of Representatives. It's going to the Senate again, where they don't like it very much in the New Hampshire Senate, the old guard folks there. And anyway, I was really proud to stand with a lot of other Free Staters standing up for bringing our troops home from undeclared wars. And, the Senate committee, they heard the bill, they went into immediate executive session and then voted it down 8-0. That's the New Hampshire Senate. But I'm told that is not going to stop us from getting a roll call vote in the Senate, which is, of course, what we need. We need to get these folks on record. This is me speaking on my own behalf, of course. The Free State Project doesn't engage in all this stuff. Speaking on my own behalf. And so I'm excited to get these folks on record so their constituents can know. And thank you to all those who came out to speak on Defend the Guard. And I do want to just share well, first of all, I also want to say, if you haven't gotten my new book yet, the Liberty Candidate's Practical Guide to Door Knocking, it's available at Amazon.com. It's been a lot of people been getting a lot of great feedback on that, so be sure to get the book. And just a little personal story I want to share, something a little sad in my life. Usually I don't share too much personal stuff on the show, but I feel like you all get to know me. I share some things with you. So this was a sad week in the Breaky house. Our cat passed away, and you may have met this cat. His name was Peter. You may have seen him. We used him in some promotional ads for Porcupine Day. His name was Peter, and I met him. He just showed up on our doorstep last March and adopted us. I've never had a pet before like this. I've never bonded with an animal before like this, and he really made this state of New Hampshire feel like home. He really made this house that we got, making the move here feel like home. We were getting ready to celebrate 1 year with him, and an unexpected medical incident took him from us. So it's a sad week here, but we continue on. So anyway, I don't know if you care about my cat or not, but I care, and I just wanted to say thank you to all who've been sending well wishes. It's been a hard week. All I got left is his little pink collar. So thank you, Peter, for all that you shared with us and for making New Hampshire feel like home. All right, enough of all that. I'm really excited to have our guest for this week on the Porcupine Report. He's been on once before. He is someone who has been a big intellectual influence on me since I joined the Liberty Movement back in 2011 as a young upstart, wanting to really excited about the Ron Paul movement. He was actually, when I had my podcast at Young Americans for Liberty, he was the guest on my 100th episode of Free America Now. And I figured as we got to the 100th episode of the Porcupine Report, I wanted to see if he would be able to come back and join us for a conversation. And he is the great Tom Woods. He is the host of the Tom Woods Show. He's like New York Times bestselling author on a number of different books. Some of them are on the bookshelf behind me. And really glad to welcome him to the show. So, Tom, Welcome to the Porcupine Report.
Eric, great to talk to you. And I'm sorry I have to follow the news about your cat. As a cat person and not at all a dog person, I'm sorry I've already alienated three-quarters of the audience. I actually can very, very much understand what that must feel like. My wife has a cat that I don't know is probably 13, 14, 15 years old, like
Yeah.
really, really old, but who is very much cherished
Yeah.
around here. And so I can perfectly well sympathize with you.
I appreciate it. He was about 15 years old, so he's pretty old. We've only had him for the last year, but he was such a unique personality. Like he loved people so much. He was an indoor outdoor cat. He would go out. He like made friends with everyone in the neighborhood. Like every person in the neighborhood has like pictures and stories of this cat just wandering up to them and just like. And anyway, it was. We would send when we would go outside, we just knew he had this like secret life. He's like just making friends with everyone. And now that he's passed, everyone is sharing the photos and stories of meeting him. And I didn't know I was a cat person either, Tom. I've never had a cat before. He just kind of like showed up and turned me into a cat person.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know if I'll be a cat person again. I don't know if any other cat can measure up to this one, but thank you for the empathy, Tom.
Sure.
And congratulations to you. I know that you and your wife are celebrating your the arrival of your son. I mean, I guess it's been a couple months now.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I had the five daughters, so I think there's at least one very, very well-known libertarian who, when we had the son, he said, "I didn't even know that was possible." I didn't either. So, in fact, I remember years and years ago when child number 5 was coming along, and we didn't yet know boy or girl. And I asked Dr. Paul himself, we were talking about it, about the likelihood of it being a girl. And he said, well, I mean, he's just going by the odds. It's looking a certain way. So, but then, but people would ask me, are you trying for the boy? Are you just waiting for a boy? Is that why you keep having kids? And that I would never have thought that way. I never felt
yeah,
like there was anything wrong with the daughters I had, or that I was incomplete in some way. And not to mention, my philosophy was always, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
yeah,
I knew how to raise them. I mean, they're all wonderful people. People who've met them know that. Whereas I wouldn't even know where to begin raising a son. But now that I have one, I think, no, this will actually be interesting and neat. And I really do have this instinct that obviously I want my daughters to be super successful and fulfilled. But for some reason, a son, I see myself in him more directly because I grew up, of course,
yeah,
as a little boy just like him. And so I do think of him as somebody who maybe can do and be some of the things that I couldn't. So it'll be fun. I mean, I'm a little, I'm getting up there, but I'm very well positioned now to have another child, and I have a lot of experience, and I'm looking forward to showing him a lot of places, some of them in New Hampshire that are meaningful to me from when I grew up. Hampton Beach, I used to go to all the time. I used to go to Canopy Lake Park a lot
oh yeah,
as a kid, and I think that's still there and open
oh
and
yeah,
running, isn't it?
yeah. My wife and I were just there last year. We went with some friends to Canopy Lake, and that was my first time there. But it's a
Okay.
nice little amusement park. Some good roller coasters actually. Um, and there's also, I mean, and then there's other great places in you'll have to take them in New Hampshire, like up to Storyland, and there's Santa's Village and a lot of great family friendly
I
things.
can't wait to find out about all of it. Because of course I grew up in Massachusetts, but New Hampshire, we lived not half an hour from the border, and we crossed that border quite a bit because my father, at that time, he would go over the border because in the law was that you couldn't sell alcohol on Sundays in
Mm.
Massachusetts, but you could in New Hampshire. So he'd go get it. Or if we had a big purchase, there were no sales tax in New Hampshire. We'd drive over
Yeah.
the border and
You know, you're
make what.
supposed to report those purchases when you come back across the border.
Oh, we did. Don't you worry about that, Eric. I have no doubt that every one of those was
Yeah.
carefully recorded and,
Yeah,
and
yeah, me
reported.
too. And when I was in Maine, right, we all reported it to the state government that we paid our proper sales tax. Of course, we did.
It's just wild. But for me, one of the most meaningful parts of parenthood has been sharing meaningful things. Whether it's music or books. What did you think of this book? What did you think of this movie? I'll give you an example of a movie. Now, this one, you have to have, I would say, it's probably better for the child to appreciate it as a teenager, maybe 14 or so, but it's a movie called Awakenings with Robert De Niro and Robin Williams. And with that kind of star power, you're surprised you haven't heard of it. But it is such an outstanding film, and it moved me tremendously when I saw it. And so, of course, I can't wait for my kids to get old enough so that we can share that experience and then sit and talk about it. That's just great. I mean, that is super, super meaningful. But also to be able to share, frankly, we live in Florida now, temporarily, but to share my New England roots and the sports teams and the food. And I mean, there's food in New England that you just don't get elsewhere in the country. I thought everywhere would have it. And they just, like, you can't get good steak tips outside New England. Sometimes they barely even know what you're talking about. You can't get good, like, nicely seasoned, well-grilled steak. You just can't. The Italian food is not nearly as good outside New England. I mean, you could just go on and on and on with the kinds of food. Or in Massachusetts, at least, maybe you don't know this from Maine and New Hampshire. New Hampshire might have a little bit of it, but roast beef sandwiches in Massachusetts are made in such a way that they're unlike roast beef sandwiches anywhere in the rest of the world. And they're absolutely delicious. They're not, quote, beef on weck, which is not nearly as good. But this is the kind of thing you can't find anywhere. Whereas you drive around Massachusetts, around the Boston area, and every street corner has a roast beef place. You think, I've never even heard of this before. It's like a delicacy to me. And so I'm looking forward to sharing this with him anew as I eventually, it's a long 6 years away, but return to my home. And I'll say one other thing. So I grew up in North Andover, Massachusetts. And it was fashionable when you were in school to make fun of the town, what a boring place it is. And, when we grow up, we're going to go out there and make our way in the world and find some place exciting to live. And look, I've lived in New York City. I've lived in some interesting places. I've lived in some pretty boring places too. But what's interesting about all of it is, interesting or boring, I look back and I say, I went out into the world looking for something that I already had. What I had in that little town was everything I wanted and needed. And I now, we used to, those of us who went out into the world, the sophisticated ones, had a little bit of a superiority complex over the kids who stayed. We're going to go out in the world. But they had it right. I realized I was wrong about that. I wandered around, lived here, there, and everywhere. But now I'm not going to go back to my old town. Partly because I refuse to pay Massachusetts taxes and the extra penalty on successful people. I just won't ever do that. But I'll be close enough that I can visit those people, and that's the next best thing. That was all I needed, and I wish my older self could have told me that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe if you had stayed, you wouldn't have appreciated it so much. Maybe it is the leaving and recognizing kind of what you took for granted that is, in fact, what makes you realize how special it was where you were raised.
Maybe it was like I went to the land of Oz, and the land of Oz has many, many amazing things in it. Let's face it. I mean, that's an extraordinary place. But as we know, there's no place like home.
Yeah, it's doubly ironic for you, Tom, because of course you did for a time live in Kansas, and you realize
remind me
that is not the place to be.
I already said that I'd lived in some boring places. You didn't have to name them.
Well, I'm really grateful that the Free State Project is not in Kansas and that it is here in New Hampshire. I don't know that Kansas was ever really in the running. Wyoming was. And Wyoming's a wonderful place if you can look past the fact that it looks like the surface of the moon.
Yeah, it's very much an outdoorsy state. Now, almost 2 years ago, I crossed something off, kind of like a bucket list item for me, which was to visit all 50 states. I did that when I visited Oregon in summer of 2024. But Wyoming had been on the list for quite a long time, and I wasn't sure that I was ever going to get there. I was waiting to get invited to speak or have some excuse to go there. 2020 gave me the excuse to go there, which was there wasn't much going on in a lot of states. And Wyoming, being very outdoorsy and not being, particularly tethered to whatever happens in Washington, was more or less open for business. So we thought, well, we love traveling. Why don't we take this opportunity to go to Wyoming? And that was wonderful. I mean, we normally What I like to do is go to some interesting city, plop myself down, and explore it for a week. I didn't feel like Wyoming really lent itself so much to that. So we stayed in one place for 2 nights, another for a night, another for another 2 nights, and really made our way around the state. And it was a wonderful, very, very enjoyable trip that we wouldn't have taken otherwise. So if I had to find a silver lining in the hideous ordeal we endured, I guess that's a small silver lining. Now, New Hampshire gets criticized for the weather, that it gets very cold during the winter. But I mean, obviously, this is a matter of taste, and there's no right and wrong, except that I'm right about this, that the New Hampshire weather is wonderful because it's 4 seasons. Kansas, you didn't get 4 seasons. You got like 2 weeks of fall, and then you got 2 weeks of spring, and then it was it was extremes. And then in Florida, it's 8 months of intolerable heat. Intolerable. And 4-ish months of really, really nice weather. Maybe 3 months of really nice weather. You're very happy you're there. But frankly, I find the cold bracing. I find it invigorating. I wouldn't want to be standing out there for an hour, but I don't mind it. And, as Carla says, you put a coat on. Big
Yeah.
deal. You're cold, you put a coat on. You're hot, what do? Rip your skin off? Like, what are you going to do? There is no relief for that, really, except staying indoors. Or, you can go to the beach. I have nothing against that. I'll go to the beach during the summer in New Hampshire, but I love the variety. It's such monotony here. It's just
Yeah.
one scorching, hideously inhuman day after another. I don't know. I don't know if this is like a therapy session, Eric. I don't know what this episode is turning into, but I can't tell you how good I feel getting all this off my chest.
Well, whenever you mention New Hampshire and these things in like really short snippets on your show, we've got to clip it and put it out there as a promo video for New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So to get long form of it is wonderful. I will say, Tom, like, I don't know. I hear stories about Florida. I hear that like there's parts of Florida where if you don't have air conditioning on in the summer, like mold will just take over, like, certain like, certain houses in certain areas just from the humidity. I mean, I guess in New Hampshire, if your pipes will freeze if you don't like have heat, but so maybe there's an equivalent there. But as far as the cold goes, I don't know. I mean, we've had a real winter here, and like, I don't know, every day for the most part for the last 4 months, I've been out there like physical exercise, like shoveling snow and walking 2 miles to the grocery store and back, and just throw on a coat. I enjoy it. It is invigorating. And I feel
and also I really enjoy traveling. Now, I used to travel a lot to do public speaking, back in the Ron Paul days. But I would never really get to explore. I would see the inside of a hotel and then I would go home. But now we like to go and plant ourselves and spend the week looking around and exploring. And so during the worst part of the winter, I could see, accelerating our travel a little bit if it really is getting to be too much. But as you say, I frankly enjoy it. Now, one thing I considered, and I can't say we've 100% ruled it out, but we've probably 95% ruled it out, was I was going to live in New Hampshire for 6 months minus a day, and live in the U.S. Virgin Islands for 6 months plus a day.
Yeah, you told me that before. So that plan has changed?
Now, have I ever said that on the show?
I don't think so. No,
Okay.
I think you told me privately, and I've never announced it publicly.
Oh, because at the time I didn't really want that. No, I don't know why. I mean, no one's going to follow me down to the Virgin Islands, but it's a U.S. possession. Obviously, U.S. Virgin Islands, a U.S. possession. Ever since 1917, they were purchased from Denmark. Quite peacefully, unlike the Greenland fiasco, quite peacefully, there was a transfer from Denmark. The U.S. paid, I don't know what the equivalent in today's dollars would be, but $25 million in gold in exchange for the, what I think was then called the Danish East Indies. So it's a U.S. territory now, no passport necessary. And I've become rather fond of them. I mean, there are about 50 islands in the U.S. Virgin Islands, but only 3 are really major ones. St. Croix, where Joe Biden used to vacation at Christmas time, St. Thomas, both of which have airports, and St. John, the tiny little St. John, accessible only by ferry from St. Thomas. There is no airport there. They have barely 5,000 people. When your grandfather was born, there wasn't even electricity on St. John, and now they have a thriving little society. They don't have everything there. You can't get Amazon Prime. You can't get fast food if that's your thing. You won't get that. But what you will get are beautiful beaches, which is why J. Robert Oppenheimer relocated there in retirement. And Kenny Chesney had or still has a home there. But you'll also find wonderful restaurants. Sometimes they're staffed by people who live in St. Thomas. There just are not that enough people in St. John to make all this work. But it's to me it's a fantastic experience, because you look around and wonder how is this happening with so few people on this the most unlikely place on earth that you would live. And there are people who have lived their whole lives there. I took my mastermind, which is a group of businessmen who, we exchange strategies, and that's how the rich get richer. They hang out with each other and they give each other ideas. And I took them I had them go on this tour that I'd gone on with a lifelong St. Johnian. Lived in this tiny little island his whole life. He was a tour bus driver. And I asked him, since in St. John, the speed limit for the entire island is 20. You can't go faster than 20, and you wouldn't want to go faster because of how windy these roads are, how steep the hills are. You're going up a hill, it's like 90 degrees, and then all of a sudden, an extremely sharp turn, and you're up another hill. It is terrifying. I mean, you're taking your life into your hands, but it's exciting and thrilling and invigorating, just like the New Hampshire cold. Well, anyway, while he was taking us on this trip, on this little tour, I asked him, have you ever driven on a highway? And he's probably about 65 years old, this guy. And he said one time. And imagine that experience, so different from ours. And he was talking to us during the tour. And of course, everything's expensive on St. John. I mean, you won't believe. Everything has to be brought over on the ferry. Everything's expensive there. As I said, you can't get Amazon Prime, so you do pay for it. But he said, look, you may tell me that a gallon of milk for $9 is expensive. And he says, but you have to understand, this is all I know. All I know are the prices that I see every day. And so I don't say, oh, my goodness, what an outrage. This is my world. And he said, I came to the conclusion that if I want to live in beauty, it's going to cost me. And so I'm going to have to do what I need to do to make that happen. And so I drive this tour bus, and I meet interesting people, and I drive around one of the most beautiful spots in the world, in my opinion, and it all works out. And I thought, that is such a great philosophy of life that this guy has. So anyway, we took this wonderful tour, and so I got to show people what it was that we see in it. What do we see in this tiny little island that we visit? We visited every year since 2021. And so I considered that when I'm not going to why would I retire? What do I even do? Why would I retire? But anyway, I'll still keep doing what I'm doing. But when I, let's say, get ready to move away from this scorching, inhuman place that I live, it would be 6 years from now. I want one of my kids to finish school. But we were thinking of moving to the U.S. Virgin Islands for 6 months and a day. And partly we just love the experience. It's really an oddball place to live. It's part of the U.S. You do not need a passport to go there. And so it surprises people. But the other thing is the tax advantages. Now, we all know about Puerto Rico, and that's why Peter Schiff moved to Puerto Rico, but many people moved to Puerto Rico for the special tax advantages. And the idea behind that is, let's bring well-to-do people in here to help them develop Puerto Rico. And in exchange, we give them huge tax advantages. Well, they do the same. It's not as well known. They do the same for the U.S. Virgin Islands. If you move there, there is one caveat I'll get to in a minute, but you pay no property taxes, and your federal income tax payment is reduced by 90%, 90%.
Almost makes $10 a gallon milk worth it.
It makes $10 a gallon milk worth it, because absolutely it does. And, you only have to be there half a year, 6 months and a day, so you're not paying $10 a gallon all the time. And you can bring stuff with you, every time you fly there, whatever. But yeah, so you will pay, you're going to pay more. People think they pay a lot for groceries now. That's true, but that doesn't come anywhere near what I would save on my federal income tax. So I thought about that, because I thought we could stay there indefinitely, or at least for 5 or 10 years, save up the tax money that we're not paying, and then come back full-time to the continental U.S. and enjoy the windfall. So we did think about that. Now, here's the caveat. Unlike in Puerto Rico, there is some expectation of you. You can't just show up and automatically qualify for these tax benefits. You have to employ at least 10 locals full-time in something. And it has to be something. So you can't just show up and record the Tom Woods show. They would say that's not developing the Virgin Islands. I may argue with them over that, but I'm not going to get anywhere. So you have to do something that they believe is going to develop, and contribute to the well-being of the Virgin Islands. And so what we thought of, what we thought of was animal welfare on the Virgin Islands is an absolute mess. There are feral animals on the street everywhere you turn. And yeah, they have clinics here and there, but it is not handled. And my wife is a huge animal lover. And so she thought about opening, the occasional shelter, a cat cafe, anything having to do with animal welfare, which you could make a very good case would contribute to the welfare of the islands overall. And even if we ran those things a little bit in the red, it would be vastly worth it for the tax savings. So, it's something to consider. Most Americans are not aware that it's an option. On St. John, unlike St. Thomas and Croix, on St. John, there are no chain businesses of any kind, not rental cars. There's no Hertz or Avis or Budget. You will find those on St. Thomas. There's no fast food chains or restaurant chains. The only chain there is the Westin Resort, the Westin St. John. And if you look at the list of businesses that got the 90% federal tax reduction, the Westin is one of them. That's why they're there. They are developing the Virgin Islands, aren't they? They're bringing in tourists who want to stay at a nice, reputable resort. So maybe someday it would be, because her cat's name is Miles Matheson, Myles, Miles Matheson. It could be the Miles Matheson Memorial Animal Shelter could be in that list someday. We will see.
But you had led with you were thinking about that, and now am I to infer that you're planning to be 6 months and a day in New Hampshire or longer?
I think now we might just live in New Hampshire and not do the Virgin Islands thing.
Well, Tom, that does mean that you will be legally eligible to run for state representative.
Oh, I am not doing that. I'm sorry. I'll help those people. I'll write speeches if they want.
Imagine the floor speeches you would give, Tom. Imagine.
I'll write the speeches for other people to give. It's time for a new generation to take them. It's always the oldsters who are hanging around too long. It's time for the new generation to rise up. But I'd be glad to help. I want to be the mystery guy behind the scenes nobody really knows about. Like Woodrow Wilson had Colonel Edward House. He wasn't even a colonel. It was an honorary title. Nobody knows where it came from. And he was like his alter ego. He had no official position, yet he was with Wilson all the time. And he wrote a fictional account of government called Philip Drew, Administrator, and much of that came to fruition in the Wilson administration. Bizarre guy. And until very recently, there was no biography of Edward House because his papers hadn't been made available. I think they have now. But he was a mystery guy who almost certainly had tremendous influence on Wilson. I want to be that guy. That's what I want. I don't want the spotlight. I want to be the mystery guy.
Well, there certainly are. There's certainly 100 Liberty legislators now who could benefit from some Tom Woods ghostwriting, for their.
But nowadays you can probably write a pretty good speech. I hate to say it. I would never do this because I'm a control freak about my writing, but some of these AI LLMs can at least write competently now. At first, it was just embarrassing, but it's gotten better.
I only did that once in the Senate. It was like suddenly a resolution for like term limits was on the calendar. It was my bill, but it was like showed up like that. I didn't realize was coming up on the calendar. I was like, oh shoot! All right. Grok, write a floor speech in the style of Ron Paul on why, term limits. Anyway, it was pretty good, but it wasn't as good as, I'm proud of some of the Eric Brakey original floor speeches that I gave.
Oh, geez. You gave, I don't even think it's debatable. You probably, some of your speeches are probably the most memorable ever delivered in the Maine State House, because I'm sure most of them are boring and parochial and amateurish and whatever. And you were writing, you were speaking like for the ages. This Maine State House speech is meant to be listened to in the year 2100.
It's funny. I had my legislative aide at the time, like clip the videos of all these speeches, and they're sitting on a hard drive somewhere. I've never like taken the time to like process them and like upload them to YouTube. And I don't know. I feel like at some point I need to like go and I don't know, take the written stuff and put it in a book. And I need to like, it was, yeah, I think it was something special that we're able to do back then. But it is amazing to see, since I got going, in 2014. I mean, there were a couple other kind of liberty legislators elected around the country back then in state houses, but to just see how it's exploded. I mean, of course, in New Hampshire, you have 100 here, and then around the country with like the Young Americans for Liberty, like Hazlitt Coalition, they've got hundreds more. It feels like I don't know, something small started rolling, small snowball started rolling downhill, like in the Ron Paul days, and something big has happened in the state legislatures now.
There's a now by the time people hear this, it will be out. But
well, this is going up tonight, so.
Oh, well, no, it won't. You have to wait an extra day. You're fast. My turnaround.
Well, usually we record a day early, Tom, but I really appreciate you being flexible with me so that I could go to the State House to testify and defend the guard.
Yeah, I decided that was a good reason. So, yeah, absolutely. Well, all right. Well, let's just say episode that's forthcoming, 2737 of the Tom Woods Show, is just me, no guest. But I felt like I know that we talk a lot about Dr. Paul and what he means to us and his ideas and so on, but that's entirely deserved. And given that there's this meme that's been kind of like a meme that's been going around to the effect that Ron Paul was right about everything has started to catch fire a little bit. So I decided, why don't I do an episode that leaves aside current events for a moment and vindicates that statement. Ron Paul was right about basically everything, and just runs through a whole bunch of things that he was right about, that it took political courage for him to be right about. It's better to be wrong a lot of times, because when you're wrong, a lot of times you're saying things people want you to say. Dr. Paul was not so easily molded, to just say what people want him to say. And I'll tell you, it was great. It was great pleasure. I took great pleasure in defending that statement and saying this is not just a meme. It really is the case. He really was right about everything. And there's something invigorating about not just the New Hampshire cold, but turning a computer on, sitting in front of a microphone, talking for 50 straight minutes without interruption, and turning that thing off and sending it out into the world. I mean, that's something really crazy about that. But also sending it out into the world, being very happy with it, and thinking, I don't know how many people will ever hear this, but those who do will be edified. And no matter how many people hear it, I just took a stand for a guy who doesn't need my help, but who nevertheless deserves it.
What is amazing, of course, Ron is such a humble guy, and like he doesn't accept any of the praise that people lavish on him, even though it is well-deserved praise. But it is amazing, like as time goes on, how much like history proves that he was right, and so many of the figures we were told to, the serious candidates, like nobody will remember them. Nobody's going to remember Mitt Romney or Rick Santorum.
Yeah, Rick Santorum. Can I say a thing about Rick Santorum?
Go right ahead.
When I went to record this episode, for the life of me, I couldn't remember his name. Now, I could have gone back and stopped recording and edited that part out, but I was sitting there really scratching my head saying, now, I know he's like a social conservative, and
it's kind of poetic that you don't remember his name. He does not deserve to be remembered.
And then I thought, well, it'll come to me, and I just continued. And then I said, Rick Santorum, that's what it was. I said, because I know 90% of you are shouting his name at your speakers right now, but I got it. But yeah, so I made the point that
he was
Rick Santorum.
He was such a jerk to Ron Paul. I mean, Mitt Romney was at least a gentleman, even if he was like a shill for all the. But at least he was
he actually was like apparently Ann and Romney and Carol Paul got along well. And I understand there was a situation where, I don't know what it was the weather, or is there some reason that airplanes were delayed, and Romney offered the use of his plane to Dr. Paul if he needed to get to wherever he was going. I mean, so there was at least something some kind of human decency there. But when it comes to Santorum, I was saying, look, a lot of people say, well, how many bills did he get passed? And I thought, well, let's take Rick Santorum. You know, maybe he got a bill passed. I don't know. I mean, do you, Eric? Do you happen to know off the top of your head if
I'm sure he did, and none of them were any that mattered or did anything.
Didn't do
of
anything.
consequence,
Didn't matter.
Unless they probably were of negative consequence. They probably made things worse.
Yeah, they probably made things worse, or they were irrelevant, or whatever. And I think Rick Santorum wrote at least one book, but nobody in 50 years can be reading his book that's in the remainder bin. Whereas in 50 years, they will be reading Ron Paul's books. They still will be thinking like him. So in other words, what did Rick Santorum fundamentally change about America? Even if he passed 3 bills, nobody can name any of them, right? Nobody can name any of them.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Whereas Dr. Paul, what matters is people now think differently. A lot of people think differently. They think differently about foreign policy than they did before. They because they feel they have permission to now.
Yeah.
They think differently about the money we use because that was not even an issue raised by anyone before. Nobody. Now people think critically about the Federal Reserve. I mean, he didn't get it abolished, that's true, but he did the next best thing, which is to get people reading forbidden books about it and to start thinking about it. That is so vastly more important than any of these dumb guy metrics that the people want to trot out.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I think there's a case to be made, without Ron Paul, running his campaign on the issues that he did. And I mean, it's hard to imagine kind of what does Bitcoin look like without Ron Paul? Is it even a thing? Is it even something people were ready for to think about can we build alternate currency systems?
Especially ones like Bitcoin whose supply is limited.
Right.
Because the mainstream economists will tut you. Well, don't you know we need it to be flexible so that we can stimulate the economy? All this nonsense. Once you've heard Ron Paul and you've read some of the things he recommends, and then you hear somebody saying, well, we need a money that is flexible so that you just roll your eyes. You say, oh, here's another one.
Yeah.
Here's another one trying to pull one over on me.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Well, it's funny, I see now, you mentioned people saying that, what bills did he pass? I see now, people saying the same thing about Thomas Massie. And of course, there's one big notable bill that Thomas Massie just passed. But I do want to say I saw the video that I guess you helped write with Dan Smots.
Yeah. Oh, he's so great
on Thomas Massie. And anyway, I thought that was fantastic. People can go find that. But.
Well, so the video is called Thomas Massie's America First, and so that gave. Now, I didn't come up with this, but that gave a kind of permission to have the website be massieaf.com. Now, you may know, Eric, that the young people have AF standing for something other than America First, massieaf.com. And so they started generating merch that says, I'm Massie AF. All right, the youngsters are always up to something.
Yeah, yeah. It's even better than Sassy with Massie. So.
It is better than Sassy with Massie.
Well, I certainly I don't know when his primary is, but I know he's got a I don't even know if it's the biggest fight of his career since getting elected. I mean, I know the amount of money that's coming in after.
Right, but boy, did they pick the worst candidate in the world or what? This was the best guy they come up with, some boring, predictable neocon.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they couldn't come up with anybody else. So he's clearly going to win, but yet I feel like we still need to support him financially, but he's still going to win.
Oh.
And the thing is, now look, I don't know who these sources are, but I know a guy who knows a guy kind of thing who's been telling me that people are trying to actually on the inside are trying to tell Trump to let this go. Because for one thing, the candidate's a loser and the whole election is a loser for Trump's side. And you don't want to be tethered to a loser because we know you hate that. Ordinarily, you hate that. You like to be associated with winners. So the best thing is just to let this go. And apparently he just can't.
Yeah.
Because of his temperament, he can't let it go.
Yeah, it is. Well, and of course, for Thomas, I imagine if he triumphs here, he's just going to be bigger than ever. I mean, obviously, if he loses a seat, then that's a huge setback. So there's a real threat. We should take it seriously, and people should support him. And thank you to all the. I know there's a lot of door knockers out there in Kentucky knocking doors in his district to help him.
They are.
Winning doesn't happen by accident, And I mean, but it is kind of crazy to just think about, like, in a year when everyone's predicting that, like, Republicans are going to lose control of the House of Representatives, and they might lose control of the U.S. Senate, and they're spending millions of dollars to try to get rid of Thomas Massie in one of the safest red districts in the country. Like, I mean, I don't know. What are your priorities here?
Yeah, well, I think we know what the priority is, but May 19th, I just looked it up. May 19th. So it seems like that's like 3 months more of this away. Good grief, that's like forever.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be glad when that's over. Because what's Trump going to do? Endorse the Democrat in the general? I mean, I don't.
Yeah. I will say, I remember many years ago, I was at a Young Americans for Liberty event Thomas was speaking at, and was taking questions from people. And I asked Thomas if he would ever consider a run for president. And I just remember he looked at me like I had asked him to, like, drown a bag of kittens, like I was like the most insulting thing I could have ever asked him. I thought, boy, I'll never want to be looked at like that again by Thomas Massie. And now I just think it's like, I don't know, 2028, the level of stink that is on so many of these nationally elected Republicans now, because they've been following Donald Trump, like, into all the wars that Donald Trump promised he was not going to get us into, like, defending, like, the whole Epstein files thing. Donald Trump said he was going to release them, and then all of a sudden, what are you talking about? There are no Epstein files. Like, it's
isn't that bizarre how they handled that?
I mean, Dave Smith's point, I think, has been right on, that it's like, there's, if you wanted to avoid releasing them, it's like there was much better propaganda to put out to avoid this. Instead, it just botched it, like,
definitely
in the most
definitely worst. And then you hear some people say, well, look, a lot of the people hyped up the Epstein files to the point where, maybe no releases in the files would have satisfied people. And so you had to start kind of letting them down a little. Well, we may have exaggerated what was in there. But they wouldn't even say that. It wasn't even like they were saying that. It was, you're all, like, screwed up in the head because you want this.
Yeah. This is a Democrat hoax, and if you want the Epstein files released, then I don't want you as a supporter. It's like, okay.
Right. And yet, meanwhile, we have the Vice President of the United States with Theo Von grinning and nodding that we need to release the files. So what does this mean? This does not make sense on any level. Why are you doing this?
Yeah. It just seems like Thomas Massie and maybe a few others. I mean, Rand has been great. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene I know she's leaving, and I empathize with her decision to leave. I felt a little kinship when she made her announcement to when I decided to, like, get the hell out of that rat race.
I get it, but I still,
it's disappointing.
It is disappointing because her presence there was very significant, and she was, look, she was a regular person. She was not an ideologue, so she doesn't study Murray Rothbard. She doesn't know about the non-aggression principle, but she has normal person instincts on a lot of things. And sometimes she wants intervention in the economy on this or that. I get it. She's not perfect because she's just a regular person who doesn't study this stuff, but she was willing to listen. She was willing to change from A to B. So she could have changed from A to B on other things over time. But she admitted that she was wrong about some things. That doesn't happen. Yeah. Nobody admits they were wrong about things, ever. Not just in politics, but in your own personal life. Think how many times it's been the last 3 years that somebody's come up to you and said, I was really wrong about that. Never. Essentially never. People dig in their heels and they stick to what they said originally. So the fact that she could say, I used to think this, now I think that alone made her valuable and worth keeping. So it's a shame.
She really kind of grew during her time in Congress, which is the opposite of what you see of most people. They just descend into kind of the worst kinds of partisanship and tribalism. And I always wonder, maybe I want to ask Jack Hunter about it sometime, because I know he's friends with Nancy Mace, but I just remember being so, maybe disgusted is not the right word, but just so disappointed when I saw, like, early on, like there was like this, like Nancy Mace and Marjorie Taylor Greene were like going at each other. It was like the most kind of like petty, I don't know what it was. And, but to see, I don't know where they started to like by the end of it, like they're two people along with Thomas Massey with like the spines of steel who are like standing against the president of their own party for the release of these files. I don't know. There are some people who proved themselves out of this, and a lot of people who demonstrated that they just there's nothing, there's no there.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know how I noticed this once, but Marjorie Taylor Greene follows something like 800 or 900 people, and apparently I'm one of them. So I did notice that she would like things I would post, which is, that's something. I'll take that more than a lot of people will do. So I'll take that. I don't know what else we got a little bit of time left.
Yeah, we need to talk about the cruise. The Tom Woods cruise coming up this August. You're coming up to New England, and this will be the last Tom Woods cruise for a while, right?
Yeah.
And I'll be on it. Appreciate I won a free ticket last year. I'm coming back. You did. Tell people about the cruise. I'm sure we got a lot of folks in New Hampshire who might like to join us for that. And I will say to Free Staters in New Hampshire, the kinds of people who come on the Tom Woods cruise are the kinds of people who would make perfect future Free Staters. It's a great opportunity.
It is.
To sell. Like if you can afford to go on a cruise, maybe you can afford the New Hampshire housing prices, and you're all philosophically in the right place. So we should get some more Free Staters on this cruise to make some friends.
Well, look, it's a ton of fun. Scott Horton's coming as a special guest, and you get to hang around with him. It's not like, well, in theory he's there, but you'll never see him. No, you hang around with him the whole time, because it's not like the whole ship is Woods Cruisers. We're a tiny group, and we're a fun, tight-knit group. And all the reasons you have for I don't like cruises, none of them apply here, because everything we do is fun and exciting and memorable. And I got Doc Dixon, the great magician, who's coming and going to do a private show just for us. And he knows all our people, and he can make jokes about Eric July and Michael Malice off the top of his head. And so it's going to be extremely memorable. I host games that if they don't make you laugh, I owe you a Coke. We have great excursions, the whole thing. And if you are a night owl, Scott Horton will stay up talking till 3 a.m. He did it last time. For anybody who wants to talk, he's still out there talking. I mean, that guy brings 100% when he does anything. So it is the most fun. But now that I have this newborn, and I feel like it would be one less thing for me to have to plan, and because I put a lot of effort into making sure this is the most fun people have all year.
I can vouch for that. The Tom Woods cruise last year was wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I just want it to be nonstop hilarity and fun, and you don't know what's coming next, and it's just great. But I want to spend a little. I sound like one of those politicians saying, "I'm resigning to spend more time with my family," and you're all thinking, "What's the real reason?" But in this case, it kind of is that this would just be one less thing to promote, one less thing to organize, one less thing to herd cats over. So it'll probably be not for quite some time that I do it again. But TomWoodsCruise.com is the website. It's worth checking out. We got a little video about it on there, but a ton of fun. So my son is too young to sail yet. We were originally going to have the cruise in April, but he would have been only 4 months old, and there's no cruise line that will allow anyone to cruise who's under 6 months old. So we pushed it ahead to August, which then ruled the Caribbean out, because nobody is going to want to go, including me, to the Caribbean in August. So instead, I thought, I've never done a New England/Canadian cruise. Now, I realize New Englanders are probably already familiar with some of the stops, but that's okay. I mean, that's just a sidelight to the main event, which is a bunch of like-minded people getting to know each other and having a nice time together. Well, that's the main thing. And I do have, some excursions planned once we get to Canada, so it'll be fun.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. That'll be in late August, and I know if folks go to the website, the TomWoodsCruise.com, and they watch the video, a little Easter egg for people, because I did watch the video. I'm there in a very embarrassing costume from the murder mystery party last year. So right. If you want to catch me, I mean, I guess it wouldn't be the first time I caught on video an embarrassing outfit.
Well, what I love about it is that the video gives no context for this. You're just standing there having a drink. And I mean, do you mind saying what you were dressed as?
Yeah, I was in like this like dragon like pajamas, like
Yeah,
one
right.
piece
So
pajamas.
it just looks like it's just a normal everyday thing for Eric to stand around dressed like a dragon having a drink. There's no explanation given. It's just there.
I was playing the lead character in a fictional children's show called the Monster Muggies.
Right.
And I was, I forget the whole context of it all, but I remember.
But yeah, so the idea was that you were an actor on a TV show
Yeah.
for children, so you
Yeah.
were dressed in a funny thing that children would like.
Yeah. Anyway, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Will there be a murder mystery again on the cruise?
I don't think so. We're going to do other things this time.
All right.
I just, even though that was fun, I decided that it really, like the murder mystery company was assuring me, oh, it won't be too many people. No, you'll have a great time. I think it was too many people. I think
Yeah,
it was too many.
it was a lot to get through, but
It was a
a
lot to
lot of
figure
fun.
out. But
well, I know you do those all around the country. Anytime you bring a murder mystery event to the New England area again, please let us know.
yeah, so unfortunately, I'm doing only Philadelphia and Denver this year. But for people who don't mind traveling to those places, woodsmystery.com is where to go. It really is a wonderful night out with like-minded people. So that's another thing. But TomWoodsCruise.com really is for no matter where you are in the country, you can come along and hop on board, and I promise you a great time.
Well, Tom, I really appreciate it. Any final words you want to share with folks? Really appreciate you coming on for episode 100.
Well, I presume most people listening are already in New Hampshire. I would think so.
Well,
So,
we actually most of them, but we do have part of the purposes of the show is to reach the people who are thinking about it or want to know what's going on here. So we got folks outside New Hampshire too.
all I can say is I don't want to say I'm counting the days till I can get there, because I don't want to go 6 years of my life not just enjoying, being present and enjoying what good I have in the present. But there is a part of my soul that is, I think, kind of counting down the days till I can be there, because I could just go on all day about all the things that make New Hampshire lovable. I could go on all day with those things, and I think the more time you spend there, the more you see it. And not to mention, you have access now to a lot of other things. We were in Providence, Rhode Island. Now, Providence, all these places are left wing, and you have to deal with that. But there are non-political aspects of life, and Providence, it turns out, has the most restaurants per capita of any American city. I don't know if you knew that, but it does. So there are a ton of great restaurants down there, but they also have something called they have the annual Jack-o'-lantern Spectacular, and they have it at the local zoo, the Roger Williams Zoo. So we went, and wouldn't have any of the kids with us. And even without any of the kids with us, we were absolutely flabbergasted at the Jack-o'-lantern Spectacular, because it must have been, it must have been 20,000 jack-o'-lanterns at least, bare minimum, made individually by all different people in Rhode Island, all of which were beautiful and amazing. And they were arranged in such an extraordinary way. I don't even know how to describe to you this experience, but just those little things that add color to life are right there at your fingertips. It does not take that long to get to a place like Providence, and there's so much history in Providence, like Roger Williams, for example. There's a lot of history. The church that he founded, you can go visit it. There's so much there. So I feel like the place sells itself, honestly.
Yeah, it's a nice little island of freedom by which you can go and visit all the little authoritarian states around, right? And they don't make you pay their income taxes when you go to visit Providence, Rhode Island.
That's right.
That's right. Maybe be careful, like where you make purchases. They might get you on the sales tax, but. But Tom, you might not be counting down the days, but we are. And unlike St. John's, when you're recording the Tom Woods Show in New Hampshire, we will consider that to be developing New Hampshire and the Free State.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Eric.
So, Tom, thank you for coming on. Looking forward to the Tom Woods cruise. Folks should go to the website, check it out, check out the video, and see if you can join us. It'll be a lot of fun to have a great community there. And
absolutely, please do that. TomWoodsCruise.com.
Couldn't
be simpler.
All right, thank you so much, Tom.
Thanks, Eric.
All right, everyone, that's the show. Really appreciate you joining us. Remember to get your tickets for the New Hampshire Liberty Forum, nhlibertyforum.com. Yeah, you'll see Scott Horton on the Tom Woods cruise. You know, if you're going to the Tom Woods cruise, we're looking forward to that. But you can see him sooner as one of our keynote speakers for the New Hampshire Liberty Forum, along with Matt Kibbe and House Majority Leader Jason Osborne, and so many speakers that are coming in from both in New Hampshire, outside New Hampshire, freedom builders. And we need freedom builders like you. So come and join us March 5th through the 8th, nhlibertyforum.com. Use our discount code Pork Report. Save 5% on your tickets. It's going to be here before you know it. Get the book, The Liberty Cannabis Practical Guide to Door Knocking, available on Amazon by me, my first published book. And a final note, I will just say I keep thinking about, you can't see off stage here, but I've got this door into my office, and usually I've got it closed. I've got it closed today, but it's about this time. I know I'd be hearing Peter the cat scratching at the door, wanting to get in. I've always got it closed so he can't come in, hop on the desk, and start walking all over the keyboard and interrupting everything. But he's not here today. So, Peter, miss you, buddy. And to everyone else, furthermore, my opinion is the Federal Reserve should be destroyed.